Top NHL fantasy sleepers and breakout players to draft. Starting with the Montreal Canadiens, there are two potential sleepers I would keep an eye on heading into the new NHL season. Number 1, Kirby Dach. Now it looks like Dach has a legit shot to see full-time minutes in a top 6 role for the Canadiens this year. His season was cut short a bit last year, only appearing in 58 games, but he still put up a respective 14 goals and 38 points. Prorate that to a healthy 80-game season, the stats show that Dach might have been a 25 to 30 goal scorer and a 60 to 70 point guy. And he's also quite versatile in that he can play on the wing as well. So if Uncle St. Louis decides to let him see top line minutes with good offensive talent like Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, then a new breakout season could be very possible for Kirby Dach. Next Montreal Canadian who might have a breakout season is Alex Newhook. The Canadiens got Newhook in a big trade with the Colorado Avalanche over the summer and decided to give him a nice bag as well. So heading into this season, it looks like Montreal is hoping that Newhook can become a key offensive player for them for the next few years. He scored 33 points in 71 games as a rookie and followed that up with 14 goals and 30 points in his second season. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, there is a little bit of offense there. And add that to a bigger offensive role in Montreal. If Newhook is able to take his game to the next level, then we might actually see him set new career highs across the board in his first year in Montreal. If you want to mop the floor with every single other fantasy team in your league and annihilate everyone badly every single week, all you have to do is just subscribe. Trust me and do it within the next 3 seconds. I wouldn't risk it. Boston Bruins, Morgan Geekie. With Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci both gone, the Bruins look like they will need some new blood to carry the torch down the middle. And one of those guys might be Morgan Geekie. Fresh off signing a 2-year deal with the Bruins, it looks like the Bruins are high on him to be part of the scoring for their top 9 forward group. And I'm not gonna lie, Boston is pretty thin at center ice now, with Charlie Coyle, Pavel Zacha, and Morgan Geekie slotted in as their top 3 centers. So if Geekie can take his game to the next level, there is a chance that he might actually be one of the team's highest scoring centers. He does have a career high of only 9 goals and 28 points, so if he ends up having a good year, it shouldn't really be that hard for him to break out. Let's say if Geekie can net you around 15 to 20 goals and around 40 to 45 points, then I don't think it's such a bad idea to use a late pick on him in your fantasy hockey drafts. DeAndre Miller, New York Rangers. Miller is coming off a pretty impressive season, finishing with a career high of 9 goals and 43 points in 79 games. And get this, he pretty much saw no first unit power play time. Meanwhile, he also contributed 162 hits and 105 blocked shots, making him one of the most well-rounded defensemen in fantasy hockey last year. He is still very young at only 23, but has already secured a top 4 role on the Rangers' blue line. So if he continues to build on last year and gets handed an expanded offensive role on the team, then a 10 to 15 goal and 50 point season is very possible for Miller as early as this season. Connor Brown, Edmonton Oilers. Now he is another potential sleeper to target for fantasy teams looking for secondary scoring. Brown was only limited to 4 games last year and was pretty much irrelevant in fantasy hockey. And heading into this new NHL season, his pre-draft rankings isn't going to be high, and I can see him being one of the most forgotten players in a lot of drafts. But we can't underrate the upside he has here. He is reuniting with former junior teammate Connor McDavid, and it looks like Brown has a good shot to lock up an offensive role in the Oilers' top 6 forward group. Playing beside players like McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent-Hopkins, Evander Kane, and Zach Hyman should only help Brown's offensive game. Brown has scored 20 or more goals twice in his career and has a career high of 21 goals and 43 points. I'm not saying that he's gonna turn out exactly the same way, but if things pan out, we might see a Zach Hyman 2.0 situation for the Oilers and Connor Brown. Now, he might not score 36 goals and 83 points like Hyman did, but let's say he becomes Hyman light. then the stats show it is very possible that Brown can set new career highs and possibly be a 25 goal and a 55 to 60 point player for Connor McDavid and friends this season. Evan Bouchard, Edmonton Oilers. To me, he is another potential sleeper / breakout player I would keep an eye on, especially if you're in the market for a defenseman who can put up points. Already coming off somewhat of a breakout year, Bouchard finished with 40 points in 82 games last year. The Bouch Bomb is one of those few players who can double down on last season and give his owners back-to-back breakout seasons. The Oilers reshaped their decor a bit and actually elevated Bouchard as their #1 power play unit guy. So seeing a full season of first unit power play time with Connor McDavid and friends might actually blow up his offensive stats even more. It looks like the Oilers are going to give him a chance to eat. So at worst, let's say he doesn't perform at 100%, I feel like he can still capitalize on many easy secondary assists on the power play. And if he stays healthy, I think there's an 85% chance he beats his career high of only 12 goals and 32 assists this year. We might not get Erik Karlsson numbers, but a 15 to 20 goal and 60 point season is very possible for Evan Bouchard. PhilipHeroni, Vancouver Canucks. Now, the Canucks traded for Hronek from the Detroit Red Wings last season, and heading to this year, he is slotted in as a top 4 defenseman on the right side. Hronek has quietly put up solid back-to-back 38-point seasons. So in many ways, I consider him an elite sleeper, but still not well known to many casual NHL fans. In Vancouver, Hronek has a brand new opportunity to break out and take on an even bigger role on an NHL blue line. The Canucks will likely rely on him to produce some offense on the back end, because beside Quinn Hughes, Hronek is one of the few defensemen with some offensive upside. Compared to others on this list, Hronek is one of the safer ones to go after in your fantasy drafts, as he has scored more than 30 points in 3 out of his 5 NHL seasons. So it'll be interesting to see how productive he becomes in his first full season with the Canucks. And if you're high on him, then you might have found a defenseman who can put up around 45 to 50 points. Vasily Podkolzin, Canucks. After an okay 14-goal, 26-point rookie season, Podkolzin actually struggled last year and saw major time in the AHL. He only managed to score 4 goals and 7 points in 39 games for the team, so heading into most fantasy drafts, I don't think he's going to get drafted. But from afar and from the news I've been reading, it sounds like the Canucks are still very high on their former 10th overall pick to turn things around. So heading to camp, the Canucks are going to give Podkolzin a shot to battle and secure an offensive role in the top 9. And I feel like best case scenario, last year was just a one-off and he continues to build off his rookie season where he did score 14 goals. Let's say he learned from his mistakes, then it is not uncommon for players to jump from 14 goals to maybe 20 to 25 goals, especially if he sees full time with someone like Kuzmenko or Pettersson in a top 6 role. And with Bo Horvat gone, I feel like Podkolzin does have a shot to occasionally play top line power play minutes. And to be quite honest, he is still kind of young at only 22. Usually by year 3 or so, this is when most NHL forwards take that next step and have a huge breakout year. Yeah, so who knows, maybe Podkolzin could be one of those guys that come out of nowhere and breaks out for your fantasy teams. Matt Knies, Toronto Maple Leafs. To me, he is another deep sleeper you might want to target much later in your drafts or quickly pick up in waivers during the first few weeks of your fantasy hockey season. Matty Knies joined the Leafs for the very last part of the season and made a good impression, especially for the team during the playoffs. In 7 playoff games, he scored 1 goal and had 4 points and was actually a +3 rating. So heading into this year, with the Leafs moving out some bodies, it looks like he has a chance to solidify himself as a full-time NHL player. Many see him as a future top 6 winger for the Leafs, and some even feel like he could be a Michael Bunting replacement due to his skill and most importantly size. Knies will be competing with other players like Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi for top 6 minutes. And if he does get on a line with someone like Austin Matthews, John Tavares, or Mitch Marner, then it's going to be hard for him not to produce. And he might be the guy to fill in for the points left behind by Bunting last year. So conservatively speaking, he could be a 15 to 20 goal and a 45-point player sooner than most people think. Connor Bedard, Chicago Blackhawks. Arguably the most hyped prospect to enter the show since Connor McDavid, there is obviously a lot of hope and pressure around the next Connor. And fantasy-wise, I usually stay far away from rookies, as history shows that not all first overall picks pan out right away. For example, it took Jack Hughes of the New Jersey Devils 4 seasons to become a 99-point player. Meanwhile, the Rangers are still waiting for Alexis Lafreniere and Kaapo Kakko to break out. However, Bedard is carrying a very impressive resume coming into the NHL, and let's be real, average players don't really score 71 goals and almost 150 points even in junior hockey. At the same time, he is heading into a very favorable fantasy situation in Chicago where he can come in and become a top 6 forward right away. Obviously, I can't predict the future, so it's hard to pinpoint exactly how many points Bedard will score this season. But for some reference, Matthews finished with 40 goals and 69 points as an NHL rookie. Meanwhile, Nico Hischier of the Devils finished with 20 goals and 52 points in his first year. And from afar, it sounds like Bedard has a higher upside than both Matthews and Nico Hischier. So if I really had to guess, assuming that he stays healthy and all goes well, then maybe a 40 to 45 goal and 75 to 80 point rookie season isn't too crazy, especially if he lives up to the hype. Obviously, he is probably still a few years away from his true prime, but in Dynasty and long-term keeper leagues, I think Bedard is just too good to pass up. Worst case scenario, if you draft him and want to dump him after, I think his name alone will make him very easy to trade. And yes, you shouldn't reach for Bedard over someone like McDavid or McKinnon. That would be kind of crazy, but if you had a shot to take him after other household names are gone, then I really feel like you shouldn't miss out on the opportunity because the generational talent and potential is there and you don't want to regret this for the next 10 years. Do you agree with everything I said in this video? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to watch more of my crappy videos, then subscribe.